Hi, good evening. Welcome to a special edition of Cat Space. I'm Kat. With me is Buckets and Leon. Hi, gentlemen. Unfortunately, Luna cannot be with us, but she will be joining us in the next week or so. Let's get down to it. Tonight's topic is called Australia. Are you listening? First one, we'll talk to Buckets. Okay. Here's the first question. What are the chances of Australia saying no to Anthony Albanese and the Labor government in the next federal election?
Really, are you talking about via a vote, or are you talking in general?
Like via vote.
I think that is just too high, extremely high. Um, it just seems to me that everything that Albanese does, everyone's extremely pissed off at. Excuse my language. Um, and a perfect example was when he showed up to um a um the last protest,
Women's rights protest
women's rights
the other day.
protest, where he basically thought he might jump on the train to try and support women. Um, it was a technicality. He asked Miss Gallagher to take his place because the original um, organizers basically said, "Mr. Albanese, could you join us?" And the office of the prime ministership basically said, "No, I can't. I'm a bit busy at the moment. I might have to send
Katie Gallagher.
Katie Gallagher instead." Um, but then he changed his mind and said, "No, no, no, I'll show up anyway." But then he lied about um, showing up to say, "Oh, well, they didn't really invite me." When they did invite him, it's just that he said that he couldn't make it. So he shot himself in the foot. Now, this isn't really a big issue when you break it down. It really isn't, but it's still an insult when um, the head of the organizers have literally said out loud, "Prime Minister, you're a liar." Okay. Now we're in a speech. Okay, that is terrible, terrible, terrible. And like one of the things that Albanese has said was that he put more money into education, which at first I actually admired. But then I found out that all those private colleges, higher skills and other community colleges, had a lot of their money taken away from them to be put into TAFE, and it wasn't put into TAFE classrooms. Okay, it was put into um, online education where it's extremely hard to get an answer back if you ask a question. So I think the at least the things that I once respected Albanese for, which was education, he's failing on education. If you actually want to do a course in TAFE, it'll cost you $5,000 to do. That's ridiculous. I remember when I did TAFE for $200. So I kind of think that with all the things that he's been doing, that he thought he would be doing well, he's absolutely failing at. Not to mention the failure of the voice to parliament and the failure of the cost of living.
Good answer. Leon, same question, your answer. What are the chances of Australia saying no, Mr. Albanese and the Labor government in the coming federal election?
Well, I'll go one further than what Phil said. He's been shooting himself in the foot. Right now, he's got the reverse Midas touch. Now you got the Midas touch where everything turns to gold. The reverse Midas touch is you're turning everything into shit, and that's exactly what he's been doing lately. He cannot seem to catch a break, and now his current issues are coming back to bite him. And as a matter of fact, Phil was just mentioning about the women's protest just recently. Here's a little thing for you. The Albanese government promised 500 domestic violence workers across Australia before the election. 3 years later, they have hired a whopping total of 17, which makes that 483 short. So that is a shocker. That is absolutely unbelievable. But yeah, he is. I think he's right. I think he's right now pretty much doing this for the photo ops at the moment. That I felt was It would have been an uncomfortable situation for Anthony Albanese to be in, even going to that protest to start with. But the fact that the organizer, and it was audible, said that's a lie, that is a terrible look for Anthony Albanese and also his office, where apparently the situation was, yeah, if one demand was met. Now the organizer said, yeah, you could talk, but if there was one demand that you could be done, and they didn't agree. Apparently the Prime Minister's office didn't agree to that, neither did Katie Gallagher, and Katie Gallagher is the Minister for Women.
Mm.
It was a bad situation. It really has. It has terrible consequences for Anthony Albanese going forward. And also, you'll know real quickly where this is going, because I believe the next state election is coming up. And I believe it's the Queensland state election where Stephen Miles, who is the Queensland Premier, is now set to lose Queensland.
Interesting. You said something about Katie Gallagher being a minister for women or of women. I think
She's the Minister for Women.
it is, please don't have me come at me, but this is deplorable. It's deplorable and disgusting to have a minister for women who is a woman, a girl who should understand, that this is an important cause and issue. She should have been the one to speak for all of us, for all women. But the thing is, when that girl Sarah was standing next to the Prime Minister, he said, "Oh, we asked if we could speak, but we were told no, we can't." And she's like saying to him, "That's a lie. That's not true. That's a whole lie.
And
you
she
lied."
broke down right next
Yeah,
to
I
the
saw
Prime
it.
Minister, and I saw the footage too, and I could not believe what I was seeing. I could not believe what I was hearing. It was a disaster for Anthony Albanese.
I mean,
and even the fact that the Prime Minister literally said, "I'm the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
I run this country." That's got to be the most ignorant words.
misogynistic.
Well,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
let's go to the misogynistic, and when I'm going to mention that because when Julia Gillard said that in Parliament, nobody had ever heard language like that in Parliament before. But by the end of the year, every man, woman, and child were making that line, so it became a yeah comment. Yeah, whatever, we'll play that one. So it basically cancelled that out straight away. It took them a couple of months to cancel that out, but also the look on the lady's face, who pretty much broke down right next to Anthony Albanese. Anthony Albanese did not turn to that one lady to console her. The women did.
Yeah, and you can see the women all hugging her, and because you could see that she was distraught.
Yep.
And
That was the
Anthony
moment where Anthony Albanese just cost himself the next election, right there in that moment.
And Anthony Albanese gave her no empathy whatsoever, didn't
He kept on
apologize
talking.
for his actions, and he just kept talking. And he
Didn't
should have
even
had the better just said, "Look, I'm sorry I said that," but he didn't do that. Instead, he just kept being more aggressive because people were challenging his power.
He should have just dropped the mic and consoled her straight away. That would have gotten him out of it, but instead he didn't. And then he went on the Today Show the next morning and couldn't answer the question. And that made him look even worse.
Do you know what would have made it better? I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kat.
Fine.
Is the fact that if Anthony Albanese were to meet
Sarah?
Sarah,
Don't know her last name.
Was that a name?
it wasn't it. Yeah, it was Sarah Williams or something.
Oh.
But if it was to basically consult Sarah, the leader of this movement, and say, what can our government do for you? What do you want better? Meet in a private tent, meet at a private office, and say, what better outcomes do you want, and how can the government serve you? Okay, it would have had a way better resounding action or even reputation that the government is actually trying to do something. But because Albanese tried to use it as another
rallying cry.
Yeah, well, the way I see it is like virtue signaling, because he tried to use it as another form of virtue signaling. He just missed the whole point of it altogether, and so a lot of women were just absolutely offended by his behavior and saw through his crap, unfortunately.
And
I mean,
just think, sorry, I apologize. I do apologize, Kat, because we're playing on the same thing. And just, what was I going to say? I just think he was giving it to Scott Morrison because Scott Morrison was acting that way. Well, pot kettle black, isn't it?
Mm.
I just think that what he has done by saying, I'm the prime minister, I run this country, and then Karl Stefanovic interviewing him and say, well, what do you make of that? And he's like, well, we are doing this and this and this, Karl. No, 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 Mr. Prime Minister, don't sugarcoat or run around the bush 1,000 times and get yourself dizzy. Answer the question for what it is and how it is, and own up to your mistake of saying, I'm the prime minister, I run this country. It is the most god awful, ignorant, rude, selfish, self centered words I've ever heard a prime minister say. And no prime minister has said that. Right? This is going to be ingrained on the Australian history, and it's going to be taught in schools that he will go down as the worst. I thought Scott Morrison was the worst prime minister in the world. He makes him look like an angel. He will go down as the worst prime minister of our millennia, of our era.
We
And
could say that about every prime minister that's come and gone. We could say that about Kevin Rudd, Julia Gillard, Kevin Rudd, Tony Abbott, Scott Morrison, Malcolm Turnbull, all those guys. We always end up saying that they're the worst prime minister ever.
Yeah,
but
but
this one,
but Albanese wasn't even in the slightest bit a little bit humble. So all the other politicians that you've mentioned knew who exactly voted them in, and were at least tried to be a bit humble, knowing who voted them in. But Albanese was just blatant. He was just completely blatant and saying, "Look, I'm in charge. Okay, you don't tell me what to do. I'm in charge." Right? So that's why I think a lot of people hate him, because he's not even humble about it. He's just like, I'm in charge. I tell you what to do, not the other way around.
exactly. Here's the next question, and I'm going to go first. Has Anthony Albanese damaged himself and the Labour brand with women? As a woman, I say absolutely 100,000%. He's damaged his personality. He's damaged his government. He's damaged himself. He's damaged his brand altogether, because what he was trying to do is to walk up to this march very egotistically, to saying, even saying, I'm the prime minister, I run this country, thinking he was going to get the females population vote, the women's population vote,
Popular vote.
He thinks that women are going to vote for him after this. This is going to teach every grandmother to tell their granddaughter, every wife to tell her daughter, every cousin to tell her every cousin to tell her other cousin, sisters to tell each other, nieces, granddaughters, women, girls like me are going to look at this and going, I'm not voting for this man. He's not for me. He's not the type of person I want helping me in the future. He hasn't helped me. He's actually destroyed my self-esteem and my self-confidence in myself because of what's gone down. What do you think, Leon?
I have no doubt he has damaged himself and the Labour brand. Well, I guess we're going to know for sure just how badly he's damaged the Labour brand in the likes of the Northern Territory, Queensland, and also the ACT. And I say those three specifically because those three are the next three states to have state elections, and they're all coming up this year. So the Northern Territory's election is going to be held on the 24th of August. The major party there is Labor. Queensland's state election will be held on the 26th of October. And also the ACT, the ACT election will be held on the 19th of October. So you've got two elections coming up in October. How's that for a bonus? But we will know in those three states and territories where this is going to play out, because I guarantee you that the LNP will play that. Do you really want this guy? If this guy, your leader, your current state leader, associated with Anthony Albanese, the best way to go around that, if I was a Labor supporter, if I was a Labor premier a premier, I would be ripping into Anthony Albanese, distancing myself quick smart for his actions and his comments this past week. So far, I haven't heard anything from either three states or territories.
What about you, Bucket?
I think the dumbest thing that Albanese did was to blame all domestic violence on men and say, look, men, you have to change your behavior because you're the reason why so many women are dead. But that's actually quite cruel as well, because there are some really good men out there that have no intention of murdering their wives. And I like to make the point that there are lesbian couples that have murdered each other before, and that females are capable of murder just as much as males are capable of murder. And I'd also like to make the point that even though women might have a higher statistic of murder, that no murder, no matter if it's a male person that has died or a female person that has died, murder is a crime, and that you shouldn't treat someone differently based on their sex. If they have murdered someone, they are a criminal, and the government has the services in play where they have fully qualified detectives to investigate said crimes, and that they are highly qualified. And we shouldn't basically pretend that these sort of vices don't exist, because they do. But the other point I'd like to make is that there actually, based on statistics, there were more murders between the years of 1989 to 1990 compared to this decade. So this current decade that we're in, there have been the amount of murders that have been murdered by either a male or a female have actually halved. So less people have died by murder in this decade than the 1990s. I mean, no murder is good. Murder is never a good thing. But the fact that the amount of murders have halved means that something good must have happened, right? There must have been some programs in place that have been lowering the cases of murder. There must be some council, some sort of welfare programs in place to stop these things from happening, and the police must be doing their job.
Great answer. Leon, I think this is a question you liked, so I'm going to say and go to you first. With the Prime Minister saying, I'm the Prime Minister, I run this country, does he think he's a dictator?
I don't know about him being a dictator, but he's a dick something else. He really, if he has apparently said this, and it has been confirmed by a number of people who were up on that stage on Sunday when that incident actually happened. This guy, what does he think this guy is? He thinks he's like, he is the Prime Minister technically. He is responsible. He should have said that I am responsible for everything happening in this country, not I run the country. I mean, that's almost Kevin Rudd-like esque attitude, and I think what does he think? I don't know if he thinks he's a dictator or not, but that just it gives me the impression that he's given himself some sort of godlike complex. He is the Prime Minister, fine, right? Wait a couple of years and we'll see what kind of a Prime Minister you are when we go, kick you out. Yeah, egotistical bastard.
Are we allowed to say that?
I don't know if you're allowed to say it or not. Well, I've said it.
Okay. Buckets. With the Prime Minister saying, I'm the Prime Minister, I can run this country, does he think he's a dictator?
I'm not sure if he thinks he's a dictator, but he certainly thinks that he's in charge, and he certainly thinks that he's above the rest. And the problem with someone who thinks this way, well, I like to see it from this perspective. Does the Prime Minister think he's a servant, or does our Prime Minister think everything he says is gold? Now, if he's from the perspective that whatever he says is in the service of Australia, I think that's a better perspective to have. But if he's doing this purely for his own ego, it means he's the prime minister for the wrong reasons. And I think that is something to be really, really, really worry about, because it's open. His entire leadership is open for corruption. And look at everything he's doing. Okay, I can't exactly say that a lot of the things that he's throwing money at, is equaling good things for the Australian people, or any sort of good leadership at all, really. I mean, look at all the billions of dollars he's been pretty much floating everywhere, and you got to question yourself, well, if we're like one of the richest countries in the world, how is it that we have a cost of living crisis? So that's why I'm saying if I don't think he sees himself as a dictator, but I don't see him thinking that he's the servant of Australia either.
I think that Leon did mention something which got my brain thinking when you said he's having like this, he thinks he has this like godlike complex. Yeah, I think that's very powerful because, to be honest, now that you've said that, you brought it out, I've come to see that from, I mean, I ignored it for so long when he became prime minister because I thought, well, he's here now, let's give him a chance to see what happens. But what awoke me to it is, after a while, all these photo ops, the Kokoda track walk, giving PNG 66 million for a rugby team and a what's it called, oval, to play their game,
a
stadium as well, helping America, sort of being on the side with America, saying, oh, I'm going to support the women. I'm going to offer $5,000 for the women who suffer domestic violence.
What about the males who suffer domestic violence? We're not going to see a cent.
Exactly. Like that.
Apparently that's not even thought of.
That's not even thought of. And I think, as a female, even though I do stand with women, I do, but I'm a human being who's empathetic and think, well, you're my mate, he's my partner, I've got brothers, I've got nephews, he's got nephews. What if they become victims of DV? They can't go to the cops. They can't speak up because what are the cops going to say? Oh, haha, whatever.
I really don't like the fact that the government has a slogan that says domestic violence against women. Australia says no, because I feel that what that sort of sign
is sexist,
is highly sexist, because it assumes that all men are to blame for domestic violence, and a lot of the time men feel that they can't speak up because society has deemed that women are the victims and men are the abusers, and it doesn't work that way. Just sometimes women can be abusers themselves. But it unfortunately, in our society, we don't see men as victims. We always, for some reason, see them as perpetrators. And I think that's wrong. And we need to address this, that it is possible for a male to be a victim.
The one thing I want to point out, and then I don't mean to go off track for a second, but please bear with me as I talk about this. Let's take the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, okay? When it started. Now, I'm not trying to say, oh, women are evil. Please don't come at me or come for me, but this is just my opinion. But what we learned was she hurt him. She beat the living snot out of him. He's a domestic violence survivor. He probably suffers from PTSD and trauma. Now, I think, and I'm not saying that this is all women, but some women, or majority of women, have taken that case too literally and have seen through her eyes and her lies and gone, well, that's me too. But to be honest, looking up to someone like Amber Heard is completely wrong, because now that's gone through the mainstream media. It's gone through thought of people talking about it. It's gone through women accepting it. But this shouldn't be the way of the world. It's our men suffer too. Our men keep quiet. There's no rallies for men. There's no, they say, oh, men have men's groups and they talk about their feelings and thoughts. No, yes and no. But men, not all men are perps. Not all men are creeps. Not all men deserve this. And I think violence against men or women or child, Australia should say no. Period. Right there. Full stop. In capital letters.
Yes, and I think we should identify that violence against men or women
It's a crime.
is a crime, and that we should be identifying these people as criminals, not men or women, just straight out criminals, because that's what they are.
Exactly. Let's look at the next question. Okay, Leon, I'm going to start with you, brother. Will this give the Liberal Party a chance to be on the offensive? On the offense, sorry, offensive. Will this give the Liberal Party a chance to be on the offense? Ugh, tongue tie. Go ahead.
It will. It's got another. There's another piece that the LNP can go after. He can, because now, like, the LNP can go after Anthony Albanese, on the cost of living, which has been a problem, and apparently from next month the electricity prices, I believe, are about to go up again, or during May, I believe. I've heard this story. I think I've heard this story in the last 24 hours, so that's going to go up again. Right now, that's the big one. The price, that's the cost of living. Also immigration, which is now blown out, and also boat arrivals, because apparently there was reports of one just a few days ago, which is right under our noses apparently, in Western Australia. So that's another one. That's two. Three, obviously, this incident here with the women protest over there in I believe it was in Canberra, I believe. So that's another thing they can go for. We'll know how this go. We'll know how this is going to go in these upcoming state elections. I did mention earlier on, there's 3 coming up in Northern Territory, ACT, and Queensland. We'll know what will happen, because I imagine the LNP think tank, is what I like to call it. They're already planning the next series of attack ads and stuff like that for those 3 states, well, those 2 territories in Queensland. So I think we'll know very quickly how this is going to go. So it'll definitely give the Liberal Party another chance to go after Anthony Albanese.
Fair enough. Good answer.
I guess we'll know in the next Ipsos poll, or whatever they call it. The next I can't remember the major name of the news poll. That's it. I can't remember. That's it. News poll is the one you got to look for. The next particular news poll, when that comes out, to see if that factors in what's just happened with the women's protest lately.
Good answer. Buckets, will this give the Liberal Party a chance to be on the offense?
Oh, absolutely. Basically, all they have to do is just quote anything that Albanese has said, and they've effectively won. I don't see Albanese like, it would be so, right now for the Labor Party, it's so hard to defend Anthony Albanese right now, because he's gonna have to make up some fake promises in order to win the next election, which I don't think is winnable, by the way. Basically the Liberal government, all they have to do is throw a dart at any sort of target, and they've won effectively. And all they need to do is just think, under the current government, did you think the cost of living was better for you? And everyone's going to say no. This will be the easiest landslide for the Liberal government ever, because I don't think Australians can afford to live under Albanese and his government. Maybe in a few years' time, they could potentially afford to live under the Labor government in maybe 4 years' time when they've learnt from their mistakes. But I don't think anyone can afford to live under an Albanese government with the amount of celebrity stuff that he's been doing, and with the amount of families that have been just downright starving and trying to figure out how am I going to put food on the table. I don't think anyone in this country can afford to live under this government, including myself. So everyone's just going to vote the Liberal Party in, and if it's not the Liberal Party, it'll be some of the independents like One Nation or the Greens or the Teal parties that'll probably get the vote, but not the Labor Party. No one can afford to be under the Labor Party at this point in time.
I agree. What I think is the Liberal Party will be on the offense, and this is why I believe so. I don't know if you gentlemen have noticed, but has anyone noticed the Liberal Party have been increasingly, creepingly quiet in the media? And here's what I think why. Bear with me, this is how my mind works. I think the Liberal Party are having meetings, they're sitting down and they're going, okay, if we just say nothing, do nothing, we can come up with strategies for our campaign for the federal election, and that's when we're going to hit the Labor Party and the Labor government. I reckon they're patiently waiting to just pouch. Because what does a tiger do, or what does a panther do, or a lion do when they see their prey? They're very quiet. They approach increasingly quiet. Then bam!
In fact, it was Napoleon that actually said it would be bad manners to tell your opponent that he's doing the wrong thing. And that's exactly what the Liberal Party are doing. They're just watching Albanese screw up and then just letting the Australian people make up their own minds.
Yeah.
And the Liberal Party, since they do not hold majority government, are just going, look, mate, you just do whatever you want and we'll be in power soon.
Anthony Albanese is currently imploding in a big way at the moment. It almost mirrors the way it almost mirrors Kevin Rudd. You know, he was on this big honeymoon for a couple of years, and then when 2010 came around, the ALP, even though he was popular, even though he was the preferred Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd, the Labor caucus did not like Kevin Rudd, and he went one step too far, and they rolled him and they replaced him with Julia Gillard. So I'm in my mind, I'm feeling flashes of this actually happening right now in the Labor Party. I will not be surprised if there is talks going on about, you know, hey, maybe this guy is starting to really screw up at the moment, and now all the stuff that he's been screwing up on is starting to come out. We may need to find another person, put him in. So I don't think it'd be on the table right now. I don't think replacing him would be on the table right now, but I will not be surprised if there is, you know, certain Chinese whispers, so to speak. I hate using that word at the moment. I hate using that word, Chinese whispers. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a whisper or two in Parliament, in the Labor Party at the moment. Hey, this guy's screwing up. If he doesn't fix it, we may need to consider somebody else to at least get that sugar hit, take it to the election, so that way it can at least hold on to power, at least maybe in a minority sense.
You know what I think? And I'm usually not the silly one in the group, but I'm gonna try and make everyone laugh. I feel like Albanese is Scar, and he's got his group, and they're taking away all the power from people, all the food, you know, and he's building himself up. Scar. I am Scar, the leader of the pack. I am Scar. This is my domain. This is my country.
So who is Labor's Simba then?
Probably be, I don't know. I don't know.
That's a very interesting point. Now, I think the hyenas are the people that are just waiting for Anthony Albanese to get rolled so they could just laugh at him.
Well, that's the Liberal Party then, for sure.
Yeah. So the question is, who would be Simba to the Labor Party right now? Because we got Scar and Anthony
Peter Dutton.
Albanese. Who?
But he's not the Labour Party. You know what? It'd probably be one of the Teals, or it would probably be someone from
The
Um,
Greens.
I would dare to say, and a lot of people are going to hate me for this, but I would dare to say that maybe Simba is someone from One Nation.
No,
Um,
no, no, no,
The
no.
Greens.
It'd be either the Greens or one member of the ALP right now.
It's the Greens. Because the thing is, right, it also reminds me, and bear with me, I know I'm not usually silly, but it kind of reminds me of King Louis of France. King Louis was a ruthless ruler of his country, of his nation, and his people. He made people eat rotten foods. He starved them. He believed he was, high and mighty in his golden throne. He ate the best foods and the best alcohol, and he had everything. And then his twin brother, Prince Philippe, you know, was cast away until Prince Philippe became King Philippe, and he restored the peace and balance to his people. He fed them, he looked after them, he clothed them, he made sure they weren't suffering anymore. And I feel like this is sort of like almost historical, where you see good versus bad.
I think, I just come to think about it, I actually think I may have an idea who Simba might be for the Labor Party. I'd reckon it'd either be Tanya Plibersek or Richard Marles. They were both recent deputy leaders for the ALP. You would have to go with either one of those two. And if they wanted to play the gender card, you'd go with Tanya Plibersek.
I think it'd probably potentially be Penny Wong.
Yeah, she's still
I
in the
was gonna
Senate.
say that, but I wasn't sure
like
if I'd get in trouble.
Penny Wong would probably be the closest to Simba in the Labour Party.
She has been there quite a while. She's been there. She's actually been in the Senate now for from next month. She would have been in the Senate for 10 years. So there you go. She's been there for Rod Shorten and Albanese. So there you go. That's how long she's been there. She's overseen 3 leaders.
There have been times where Penny Wong has just been like, Albanese, what have you done? What have you done? Because it's her job to, as foreign minister, to fix all of Albanese's problems every time he makes a bad mistake in bad overseas problem. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was Penny Wong would be Simba, to be perfectly honest.
So there you go. We've got 3 potential names for you right now. We've got Tanya Plibersek, Richard Marles, and also Penny Wong as potential names.
That's right. Here's the second to last question, because I had to write a question down yesterday. All right, here we go. Based on recent developments with the current government, what do you think the outcome will be?
Do you read that question to me?
Based on recent developments with the current government, what do you think will be the outcome?
Well, the outcome is basically no one can trust Albanese anymore. That's the first outcome. I think the Australian voter will no longer rubber stamp their vote. See, before, what used to happen is it used to be Labor are the good guys, Liberals are the bad guys. Don't vote for Liberals because they're the bad guys. You can't trust them, whatever. But I think the result of everything that's going on, people will literally think long and hard about, okay, what can this party actually do for me? And that's who I'll give my vote to, as opposed to these are the good guys and these are the bad guys.
Yeah.
Because there are so many people that, like myself, that voted in for the Labor Party thinking, hey, the Labor Party are the good guys. They will fix all of my problems. I can rest easy knowing that a Labor government is in power. And then within a month, I was regretting my decision. And so was a whole lot of other Labor voters as well. So that's why I think people will actually care more about their own vote. I know I'm repeating myself, but they will just think, what party will do the most for me? So I think this good guy, bad guy thing is over. I think it's more, what can you do for me?
I like that one. Leon, same question, your answer. Based on recent developments with the current government, what do you think will be the outcome?
Well, we need to have a definitive party running the government, running the federal government. We just had in Tasmania, right? No party had enough seats to rule in the overall majority. So, I believe it's a LNP minority government. I believe that's been the case. And the Kingmakers there with the Jackie Lambie network. I believe that's how it's pronounced. But anyway, if I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me. But they were the Kingmakers. So um, that if we were in the minority, it would be the worst scenario. It would be the worst case scenario because that happened in 2010 when Julia Gillard took over as the first female prime minister. Not knocking the first female prime minister, I think she did an admirable job being the first female prime minister, but she had to make deals and walk back on her promises shortly after the election to ensure supply and demand from the Greens, which meant breaking a promise that she took to the election. And the moment she did that, she became pers- she became ultimately, unfortunately, a dead woman walking, and that stayed with her until she was rolled again by Kevin Rudd. We cannot have a minority government. It has to be either the Labor Party or the LNP Party to actually rule outright. We cannot be relying on deals from the minor parties. That would be the worst case scenario for Australia. It's got to
See,
be done by either ALP or LNP.
I actually disagree with that because some of those minor parties at the moment are actually the only ones listening to the Australian people, whereas the major parties like the Labor Party just are not listening. And I think if there's a situation where we get a hung parliament again, I think the major parties will be pretty much forced to listen to the minor parties if they want to maintain government. And so if you've noticed, Leon, um, what the Teals, the Greens, One Nation, and all the other minor parties like the Jackie Lambie Party actually want is they want a rental freeze because all the renters can't handle the rent increases, including ourselves. But all the major parties are just kind of ignoring that. So I would want all the minor parties to create a coalition and say to either Labor or Liberal, if you want our support, we want you to implement a rental freeze, or you won't have our support. And so the Labor Party or the Liberal Party would be forced to listen to them if they want majority government. That's what I think.
I think for me, there's two ways, two predictions I can think of. One, he gets in by the skin of his teeth, by a point, but he won't last long. Or there's a major upset, and as Bucket said, landslide. This is how I see it'll end up really messy for Albanese, is that the Greens, who have tried to make a deal with Albanese and the Labour government to sign the deal for the rent caps and the rental freeze, and Albanese has been ignoring that. So now they're starting to make deals with the Liberal Party. If they continue to make deals with the Liberal Party, I predict that the Greens will make a partnership with the Liberals to help them get into to help them win. There is a strong point that the Greens will support the Liberal Party if the Liberal Party will support the rent caps and the rental freeze. That's what I think.
If the Greens flip to the LNP, the ALP is absolutely gone. They will not win the next election because that's what happens when the federal elections come around. The ALP unfortunately have to rely on the votes and the flows from the Greens. If they don't get the support from the Greens and it goes to the LNP, they might as well call the election over by the time it reaches South Australia because it's no way they could win.
But if the Greens shake hands with the LNP party, because don't forget, this is no normal LNP group. This is the LNP. This is a Liberal National Party, which consists of Mr. Warren Mundine and Miss Jacinta.
Price.
Napa Jimber Price, I believe that's her full name.
Price. They have the most powerful two people, respected, loved, and liked in their communities, joining forces with Peter Dutton. If the Greens can shake hands with them because they got those two, Ms. Price and Mr. Mundine, and Mr. Mundine has his nephew's blessing. What's his name? Anthony Mundine, who also said no to The Voice. Imagine the biggest upset, the biggest KO in the world, the biggest. Forget Monday Night Raw. Forget SmackDown. This is WrestleMania at its finest. This is the Uso splash. This will be the Roman Reigns of the Cody Rhodes. This will be Triple H's victory. Okay.
One of these just
it'll be the WrestleMania of all WrestleManias.
It'll be a knockout.
This podcast sponsored by the WWE.
No, I'm obsessed with them. Sorry, but
this is sponsored by the WWF, World Wildlife Fund.
But this is what I think. If the Greens can sign themselves up or shake hands with Jacinta Price and Warren Mundine and Peter Dutton, that is going to be a spicy meatball.
It'd be over before it hits South Australia. Because all the numbers up and down Queensland, New South Wales, ACT, Victoria, and also Tasmania, they've got, well, mainly I think Queensland do have a heavy presence of Green supporters, and so does Tasmania. If the Greens shook hands with the LNP, you wouldn't need to go to South Australia, Northern Territory, or Western Australia. It'd be over before it even hit anywhere near the West Coast.
That's 100% true. If the Greens shook hands with the Liberal Party, okay, it would be completely over for the Labor Party. They would not.
It'd be over by the time the polls closed in New South Wales. Yeah. That's how quick it would be. It would be done. It would be over.
Yeah.
Now that's a spicy meatball. I had to be the silly one. Last question. Here we go. Here's the kick. Here's the conversion. Okay, we've scored the tries. Here's the conversion. Leon, is Australia quietly becoming an Orwellian country plus society?
It does seem that way, where we're just going through the motions right now and just silently agreeing with, whatever they're proposing at the moment. It just seems like it's slowly becoming that way. I don't want to see it that way. I want to see the freedom of speech, freedom of choice, and freedom to watch whatever entertainment we choose.
I agree. Powerful. That's actually powerful. Buckets?
I think we're practically already there. I mean, the fact that Albanese is having arguments with Elon Musk about the Mari
manual thing.
A manual thing where he got stabbed. Even though he got stabbed and damaged, Mari actually wanted he didn't want that to be censored, because censorship, in his mind at least, is the basically the enemy of free speech. And it's if you want to be free, you can't just censor that stuff just because you don't like it on television. So yes, I think we are becoming an Orwellian society where we're not allowed to, if you say the wrong thing on YouTube, then you get banned for it. If you basically
or comment removed,
if you have a comment removed or something like that. But the thing is about free speech is, you got to remember, is that if you say something that offends another person in Australia, they are free to question what you have said and argue against it. And that is healthy freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is not basically saying something and then hating something to the point that you say, oh, I don't like that, so we're going to call that hate speech, because that's not freedom of speech. That's no different to oppression or censorship.
Exactly. Here's you both brought out something very important, which is you said freedom of speech. You said freedom of speech. But the thing is, and freedom to say what we, but the thing is, freedom to say what we want, you both pointed that out. But what about thinking for ourselves? We are no longer able to think for ourselves. And if we dare to say anything, a word, a sentence that a certain person in power doesn't like, then he censors that. That puts fear in the everyday Australian, where social media is going to be destroyed by said person, because said person doesn't want memes or bad things said about them on social media. And if that is, that person is bullying us into going, you will think what I tell you to think. You will write what I think is appropriate. There's no like this, because if you go like this, hell hath no fury. Because an Orwellian society, to be told what to think, what to say, what you're not allowed to say, how you behave. What bothers me is that our national anthem says, "For we are one and free." And I've said this in most podcasts when we started doing this, us three. We are not one, nor we are free. We are dictated to.
Can I say something about that? So just because there's something called freedom of speech consequences, right? The consequence of freedom of speech. Now, there's nothing wrong with the consequence of freedom of speech on the condition that your freedom of speech isn't taken away from you. So if Leon basically says something to me that I don't personally agree with, okay, then his consequence is I just don't give him the time of day, right? And that's his consequence, and he has to live with that. Okay, that's his consequence. But Leon has every right to question what I have to say, because that's his freedom of speech. That is what you call freedom of speech. It is the right to say whatever you want and argue with whatever you want and actually think for yourself. But when you have consequences, those consequences could be, oh, well, I don't want to hang out with that person because I don't like hanging out with negative people anymore. Okay, but you should still be allowed to say whatever you feel to enact freedom of speech. There might be a consequence with it, but that consequence shouldn't be censorship. Okay, it should be some other consequence, but not censorship.
Exactly. Like, what are your final thoughts on that?
I think we are getting. I think. Yeah, it's like people who don't agree with you, right? They're immediately trying to censor you and try to not make you be heard anymore. It's like they've been watching too many episodes of Parliamentary Question Time. If they don't like what's being said, they'll just censor you. They'll not allow you to speak or whatever like that. A friend of mine has just got back in Facebook jail. It won't be out until tomorrow apparently. But it's commentary that people don't want to hear and they complain about it, and that's where the freedom of speech ends. Elon Musk is trying to challenge that authority, which to be honest, I hope he sticks with it, and I hope he continues challenging it, and quite frankly, I hope he wins, because that will show the Australian government, hey, you can't censor everything that you don't like. That footage, by the way, you mentioned that footage at that priest. It's still readily visible on likes of Facebook, and also what's that other bit of social media called again? Oh yeah,
TikTok.
Facebook.
Yeah.
So why aren't the government going after Meta or Facebook or YouTube? They're just going
Because
after Elon Musk because it's Elon Musk.
they don't go after Facebook or Meta because
Yeah.
because I don't know. I'm scared to get in trouble and say something.
Yeah,
Could
exactly.
it be
They're not going after Meta. They're not going
no?
after YouTube. They're just going after X because the video was found. The video was there, readily available on Twitter, aka X.
You know that Mario Manuel has lost an eye because of it.
No, I haven't.
He's
haven't
actually got one eye covered. He's lost an eye
There's one
because of it.
covered
But
at the moment, so
yeah, but the thing is, this is what I think is wrong with this country is that we're too afraid. Like I'm too afraid to say something that could get me in trouble because, you know, if I don't tote the line, then or follow the line, I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna get flagged. But the final things I want to say, I'm sure you guys will agree with me, is how long till everyone's feelings and thoughts and emotions that they swallow boil over to the fact that if you say something, it's like being scolded by a teacher, go to the principal's office. But it's just, I don't know what the word is. Like, I'm struggling to,
The word is censorship.
yeah, there you go.
But can I say something though? If you say something that's offensive, guess what? Words don't actually hurt you, not physically anyway. They may emotionally hurt you, but they don't physically hurt you. Your finger isn't gonna start bleeding if someone says something offensive.
No.
Okay. You're not gonna get a headache from a person who says something offensive to you. And you have the right to walk away if you so choose. Okay. You don't have to listen to that person's words or take them seriously. You can just walk away and ignore them. Okay. Or you can argue with that person back and completely disagree with what they're saying. But they're not, the words themselves aren't actually going to help or hurt you. Physical abuse will hurt you, but not words. They
Yeah.
won't physically hurt you. They might emotionally harm you, yeah, maybe, but they're not going to physically hurt you. So you
Mm.
have the right to walk away from a person which you deem is negative.
Exactly. Well, this was a big topic. Thank you so much to you both for joining me tonight, Leon and Buckets. Let us know in the comments below what you think and how you feel. And let us know what you think of these questions. Give us your answers. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. If you click that bell, or when you click that bell, that allows more content to come your way. And we're in the process of writing some more, creating behind the scenes. Invite your friends to subscribe and like and comment and share our podcast with everybody. And, stay safe wherever you are. God bless and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.